Hey everyone, welcome back to the range. My name is Matt and we're here for a ballistic test today. We have some steel core body armor. I know, don't shoot me. Everything is polyethylene and ceramic, but occasionally I get asked to evaluate steel offerings and see how they will stack up, especially with the upcoming NIJ 07 standards. This particular model right here is from Predator Armor. In full transparency, they provided this plate for me to demo with no strings attached. This is their 3+ model. It is 12.69 millimeters thick, or approximately 1/2 of an inch. Some of the areas, depending on how I measure it, are thicker or thinner than others. A major detraction to this particular piece of steel, it is 8 pounds, 10 ounces. It's a hefty boy, but I believe it is so heavy is because it has a different type of fragmentation mitigation on the front of it, and that's what interested me most in testing it, because I saw a few other tests online where it did a really good job at controlling the fragmentation that typically happens with our steel armor. When that bullet hits this hard surface, the fragments from the bullet will spread out. And if you don't have a good way to contain that, those fragments can actually, cut your arms and other parts of your body. Now over here at my channel, we try to stick to as many constants as possible so that our data is hopefully valid from test to test. So since this is rifle armor, we shoot at 45 feet. We also shoot at 0 degrees because that is worst case scenario. We use this giant clay briefcase here filled with Roma Plastilina #1 clay donated by Siobhan. This is a non-hardening oil-based clay that when you heat it up to a certain temperature, it's like 103 degrees, and you drop a steel ball at 6 feet on it, it makes a certain size impression, and that means it's calibrated, and it will give you actual accurate NIJ backface measurements, or the amount of indentation that bullet would make in you from the energy being absorbed by the armor. It's 90 degrees outside today, and I don't normally have a way to heat the clay up. So this is more of a representation, but I use this to strap the armor to so it's not flying around and we've got maximum energy on the plate. Now this is steel core body armor. It doesn't employ any ceramic in it, so we don't have to drop it on its face 2 times. We use a chronograph, a Pro Chronopal Digital DLX that we've got at 12 feet from our muzzle that we use to record the velocity. Since this is steel core, we want to know at what velocity it will hold up against M193, which steel is weak against. And finally, we put a spreadsheet here at the beginning and the end, and I foreshadow all the different rounds that we're going to shoot at it. We fill it out at the end, and now what I've done in 2022 is I've made a Google document share of that spreadsheet so that you guys have one-stop shop place to go look at all that data. And I believe someone else has been collecting the same amount of data and putting it in a spreadsheet too. I'll have to get that link and put it down there in the description below. Another day, another dollar. Hopefully all my followers never get tired of me saying that. I think I recorded the intro for this like a month ago, and I always end up running out of time. This plate testing should go pretty fast since we only have one, but we're going to start right with the level 3 threat because someone suggested that I go with the baseline. So we've got our M80 ball. This is 145 to 150 grain full metal jacket. It sometimes has a bimetal jacket. Now the NIJ specification calls for 2750 feet per second plus or minus, I think 30. I'll have to annotate if different. And I was getting close to that out of the 22-inch, but now I've got a 24-inch Savage Axis 110 tactical left-hand eject with a JK armament rifle kit on there. So we're seeing sometimes 29 to 3,000 feet per second out of this load. So it's outside of that specification, but we know if that plate stops it at this increased velocity, that's a good selling point or good data point. So we're going to take 4 shots on this plate, probably in the outer edges of it, to also test for fragmentation, because that's a concern with our steel plates, and see how this Predator Armor fragmentation system does against the 308. So this one should be the upper left of the plate. Got a velocity reading off that. This will be to the right. This will be down low. This will be on the right-hand side. Awesome, got velocities off every one of those. You all probably can see from the third camera that our fragmentation coating system is already starting to come apart from those 308 threats. So we're gonna go down to a 16-inch velocity for M193. That is a problem child for steel. That is our 55 grain full metal jacket. And then we also have 2 rounds of M855A1. That is the Army's current issue ball round. 62 grains, copper core, large hardened arrowhead steel tip on there. Hopefully my offsets are correct. I really should buy some like 1 to 6 LVPOs or something for these test guns so I can see what I'm shooting at when you need to make, you know, accurately spaced 2-inch shots at this close. So this M193 is first. It should be the upper part of the plate. Did not get a velocity reading off of that. It might have been off a little bit, sorry. Let's try for the second. Got one off of that one, 31.48. Then this will be the third round. Let me go check the plate before we continue. All right, now our M855A1. This should be in the middle of the plates or thereabouts. Got a velocity reading off that, pretty good velocity. And then we'll put this one right next to it. We brought out Mr. Long and Strong, our 22-inch TC compass with the turbo 556. So we're gonna get maximum real-world velocity out of this. We have more rounds of M193 as well as M855A1. Typically in any of my tests up until 2022, M855 has never been a threat for steel alloy strike faces, so we will not be using that to save on our plate. Drop that one down there. Give us a little bit of illumination on our PA scope here. Let's check our offset. So this should be in the middle of the plate. Still getting good velocity. Last M193. Place this on the bottom next to where that M85 or the M80 ball was first shot. Not sure if I got a velocity reading off that or not. Oh, chronograph said 33.26. If it doesn't reconnect, I'll read this one off. This is M855A1. This should be on the right side of the plate next to the first M193 shot. 31.82. Then our last M855A1 will be on the left side of the plate above the M80 ball shot number 1. .3203. Well, folks, this plate is going to be very hard to read, giving away some of its construction for the teardown, but we have some kind of Kevlar aramid fiber that's used as a fragmentation liner, and we also have this somewhat thin alloy strike face protectant on top of it. So our M80 ball shot number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that pretty much did a lot of this destruction. Then the M193 from the 16-inch, number 1, 2, and then 3. Then the A1 shots were number 1 and 2. Then from the 22-inch, M193 shots number 1, 2, and 3. That's a little close to that A1 shot. That might not be considered a fair hit. Then the A1 from the 22-inch, shots number 1 and 2. I feel depending on what our results are, I may have 2 to 3 good spots left on this plate. I mean, if it helps foreshadow any, I don't see any holes in the back of our wood. Helper hand. Uh-oh, R.A.N.G.E. We have penetrations from the A1 shots, as well as both M193 shots. So that was A1 right down there and there. So it stopped this A1 over here, but that one went through. And then at the velocity that we're getting out of that M193, that is above the NIJ's proposed RF1 spec at 3250. I didn't bring any longer barrel lengths out here today. So again, this is where we rely on the manufacturer to pay an accredited lab to go through the testing protocol, because they're going to shoot a plate, 6 times and check for penetrations, then shoot a second, third, and fourth. And usually, from what I've asked some of manufacturers, if they spec a threat and they shoot 3 or 4 plates and it stops all 6 hits at that velocity, then they'll actually rate that plate for stopping it. So as always, M193 is a threat for steel. Good though that it's stopping it out of the 16-inch, as well as M855A1. Some of our other steel plates that we've tested recently have not been able to stop the A1 threat until we've gone all the way down to the 10.5-inch barrel. As far as any fragmentation, I didn't put a box up today, but normally what happens when those frags start leaving the plate is you see a lot of cutting and discoloration on here. I see some fragments in here. There's a couple right here, and there's one embedded here, but there's not a lot of cutting here. So I would say, it didn't stay intact too well after those M80 ball shots, but versus other steel that's just lined with our, rhino lining or the polyurea coating. That's a hard word for me to say. This is doing a better job. I have one more threat after this that we're going to shoot at this plate, and then I figure at this point it's pretty much done because I've used up a lot of space on there. But that last A1 shot wasn't a fair hit in my opinion, so we're going to take one more of those and go on to the other threat. It should be at the bottom of the plate still. Should be right where I want it. 3204, good velocity off that. Let's move on to that other threat. And now we brought back the 308, but in a much smaller package. This is our Imperial Arms FN Specialties Cypher X0 80% receiver that I had to finish myself. MTM lower from them that uses any mil-spec AR-15, AR-10 fire control group, and it uses our SR-25 pattern magazines. I have M80A1, that is the Army's current issue ball round 308, 130 grains with a very large hard steel tip copper core, just like M855A1, but the tip on this isn't as hard. We're still seeing pretty good velocities out of this, and I've used this in quite a few tests recently out of this short barrel, and most plates have not stopped it. This should be in the upper right of the plate if my offsets are correct. I hope so. Pretty good velocity off that, 26, almost 2,700 feet per second. Our final shot from M855A1 was right down here. That is about 2 inches from the edge of the plate. I would consider that a fair hit. Now our M80A1 was shot all the way up here, right where I wanted it. I have some 130 grain ball that I'm trying to figure out the scope offsets on. So that first shot was right here. That is definitely not a fair hit. It's almost right on top of that M193 that penetrated. That one's pretty darn close to the edge as well. I think at this point, this plate is pretty much used up. As always, place your bets in the comments below. Helper hand is off, playing on the side-by-side. Hey, no pass-through from the M80A1. Up here anyways. Now, and, even that shot over here, folks. No pass-through. Interesting. So that tells me that this particular steel is hard, and this construction in the front, I think, is aiding it. We'll talk about that in a minute. The other M855A1 shot down here penetrated as well. So from a 16-inch, you are good with M193 and M855A1, but anything longer, at least, out to 50 yards, may be an issue. And again, Predator should send this off to an accredited lab and have many tests done on these projectiles to ensure that what I've got here can be mimicked as far as results go. But impressive. That M80A1 from the 12.5-inch, or 13-inch, sorry, stopped. As far as our back face goes, with our steel plates, you can see that we're not seeing any localized trauma. You're just seeing that the plate is getting shoved back. Now for everyone's favorite part, the teardown. This is a very interesting design plate. It does come at a weight penalty with all of these extra add-ons at 8 pounds, 10 ounces. But up front, above everything else, we have this sacrificial alloy sheet metal thingy. And I think what's happening is it's causing the rounds to upset early on and possibly causing them to yaw and change their trajectory, or even maybe add a little piece of this alloy to the tip of the bullet, and that causes it not to be able to penetrate as well. Then after that, we've got this Kevlar aramid fiber layer that's all torn to bejeebus, but this kind of helps catch that fragmentation. Inside of a plate carrier, this probably would do pretty well at catching it. As I mentioned on the table, we weren't seeing a lot of that cutting that we normally do. And then our strike face here, you can see that those two shots of M80A1 right there, that is, 3/4 of an inch from the M193 it penetrated, and it stopped it, as well as that one. Look how close that is to the edge. Anybody that's watched my channel knows that steel is particularly good at taking shots very close to the edge, or a multitude of shots. Here was our M855A1 M193. I'll have to confirm that this was an M193 shot. I thought it was, and that's how I marked it. But maybe that was M855A1. Sorry, sometimes I get going too fast out here and I write things down or I say the wrong thing, so I will annotate otherwise. But interesting, this particular piece of steel seems to be offering good resistance against our very common threats. I know, steel armor is evil, but when I'm asked to give an assessment, I tend to oblige because I just pretty much like blowing holes and stuff. I would say overall, from Predator armor, this particular plate performed very well. We did see a limitation of M193, but with our overspec M80 ball, we stopped all 4 of those rounds without incident. Now, the fragmentation mitigation system of this Kevlar, I think that worked pretty well. I didn't see any extreme amount of cutting on our table, but I didn't do the whole box of truth test to see how much of the cardboard was getting chewed up. But normally when it's pretty bad on our table, it's been destroyed. Destroyed that table anyways today, so I got to get another one. But I like this little sheet metal plate that we have here that helps disrupt that bullet before it makes its way to our strike face. With all that being said, it's time for me to get the heck out of here, but at the end of all my videos, I take a moment to thank all those who help make these possible. Number 1 is my Patreon and Subscribe Star fans. I have my magic link tree in the description below with different means to contact me if you have any questions, because sometimes the YouTube comments suck and I don't see them. There's affiliate links in there. I don't think I have one set up for Predator armor, because in full transparency, as I mentioned, they sent this plate for me to demo and review with no strings attached. Number 2 is Predator Armor, who sent me that. Like I said, I like testing the upper limits of plates, and anytime I can get my hands on one, I really want to put holes in it. And of course, number 3 is you all for watching. Until next time, I'll catch you at the range.